Hello and welcome to this month's Body Signals Workshop. My name is Dr. Lazar Jancic, chiropractor at Leederville Chiropractic Clinic. Now, just note that these workshops, I'm only doing the workshop once a month, and it's a more in-depth look at that month's theme. You will also have been receiving some weekly emails and blogs. These are just little snippets of information, little teasers to get you excited about that month's theme. So this month is all about immunity. Now, have you been seeing some sick people around in your family, at work? I certainly have. Just this week alone, there's been a bunch, but really the last few months, and that's really been what we've been talking about lately. Last month was about recovering from the holidays. Many of you are still doing that. You've been traveling, getting back into your usual work and life stressors. And the people that I've come in, they're often very stiff, very achy, and very tired. And it's very, very common around this time of year. There's lots of stress, and stress lowers our immunity, as we'll talk about very shortly. But you have to stop blaming bad germs and bad luck, because there's a lot more to it than that. So just remember, each month is a different theme based on the most frequently asked questions that I receive here in my clinic. And next month, keep an eye out. It's a big one. It'll be all things low back. And we'll be talking about how you can bulletproof your low back.
Now, if we're going to talk about immunity, we're going to need to talk about what health actually is. I think this is an incredibly important topic as we are in the middle of a health crisis, an epidemic of disease and illness, and most of you probably don't even know it. Have you heard anything about this in the media? It doesn't get mentioned, does it? Heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and dementia are killing something like 2 out of 3 Australians. The science shows these are chronic lifestyle issues and most of the time completely preventable. This is partly why I'm doing these workshops.
You see, one of my core values driving my mission and my purpose is truth. And it really bugs me when I see so much misinformation, and I have to say it, manipulation out there still to this day about health and well-being. And it's costing people their quality of life, and worst of all, as I said earlier, their lives. The system is being bankrupt by chronic illness and disease, and it doesn't even make it to the news. And the solution is so simple, guys, if only you know the truth. Also, as a chiropractor, I get even better results when I'm dealing with healthy people and healthy minds. It's so much easier to create change when you're working with a healthier body. So keep that in mind.
So, in the workshop, we'll be talking about 3 key reasons for this health crisis. The first one is simple. Most people function under the wrong definition of health. You see, most people think and behave as if health is just about feeling good. But that could mean you're only here at this point. You see, in this diagram, this represents the spectrum of health. And on the left, you have pretty much death, and on the far right, you have perfect, ideal health. Currently, our existing healthcare system really functions in this domain because the only time we really intervene is when there is a sign or symptom or disability. Anything less than that, if we're feeling okay and we don't have any symptoms, there's no intervention and we are termed healthy. However, we are forgetting about this whole aspect of health, and that's the problem with the current system. So if you're only going by how you feel, you don't know where you are along the spectrum. You could be just on the border. Just remember, sometimes the first symptom in serious conditions like cancer or heart disease are very serious symptoms, often life-threatening. So you don't want to be really lingering in this, around this area, okay? So how many of you are taking preventative measures? Where do you fall on this spectrum? Well, again, it depends on your definition of health. But if it only revolves around how you feel, this is a very risky game. I go by a very simple definition of health. It goes like this. Health equals your cells working in perfect balance. Your cells functioning exactly how they're meant to. The scientists state this definition homeostasis. That's what homeostasis means. It means perfect balance. Your cells can't do this if they are toxic or deficient. This is the root cause of all disease. Stress in the form of toxicity or deficiency. Basically, having too much of the stuff you don't need or not enough of the stuff that you do need. As a result of these body signals workshops, I would like people to learn to talk body and understand symptoms or body signals. If you have a look at this slide, it's so important to listen to your body but understand the big picture, that it doesn't always tell you everything. Symptoms represent only the tip of the iceberg, and although an important clue, can be misleading as to the extent of the underlying condition. What would happen if we only focused on the tip, the symptoms? You might risk having your ship sunk. Remember the Titanic? So we know that getting sick is our body signals telling us our immune system is under attack. And even though it's a sign of a healthy body response, that your body is doing what it should, it also means that we are run down and the body has been stressed. It's a clue that our choices have led us to this point because we know getting sick is not by accident. This is what I mean by you don't get sick, you do sick. It's not bad luck, it's choices that we make. It's something that we are doing. So here's what we know to be true. Healthy is normal. We'll talk more about this later. But we are not programmed for sickness, are we? Evolution says our genes get stronger with time. So it doesn't make sense that sickness is a genetic problem. Your body is super smart. Nothing happens by chance or accident in our body. The nervous system is the master control system, and it's the system that determines how we respond and cope with stress. Our spine is our suit of armor. We'll talk more about that later. And this point here I think is super important. Modern life is unnaturally stressful. Let's talk more about this now. What I'm about to tell you is so important that I literally call it the secret to health. It explains all the whys around health, why we need to eat certain foods, why we need to exercise as much as we need to, or any aspect of our lives, like even raising children.
It is a scientific fact that our genes have not changed for probably over 40,000 years. So we are identical to the people and the humans that lived on Earth back then. And what that means is that we have evolved, our genetic requirements have evolved for the kind of environment that we had back then. We know that these people were super healthy. You may have heard that they only lived to maybe 35 or 40 years of age, but this wasn't because of poor health. They weren't dying from chronic illness. They were dying from mass infection, if you broke a bone, you probably would have died of an infection. They lived in uncertain times with dangerous animals, around the corner. So on average, they had shorter lifespans, but they were not dying from chronic illness. And the ones that survived their injuries and their infections, they actually lived to longer than we are today, and they were not dying of chronic illness. They were dying of old age, which doesn't really happen in our society. We are dying from chronic illness. And trust me, there's plenty of evidence to back this up. The average hunter-gatherer was as fit and healthy and strong as our modern day athletes. Can you believe that? And so the reason is because that's the kind of environment that they lived in. And again, as I keep repeating, that's what we evolved for, and that's what's normal for us, that type of health. So that's why you hear me say often that healthy is normal. And that type of health, that type of athleticism, that's normal. Anything less than that, and we are moving away from health.
So, when we're talking about making lifestyle changes and boosting our immunity, I love this analogy. People often focus on their to-do list, but in conjunction to doing, there are some things we need to stop and others slow down on. This is not about perfection, but progression. Change needs to be easy and comfortable, and over time you get closer and closer to your goals. But at the same time, you need to know the truth. Your genetic requirements were shaped by millions of years of evolution, and that is going to dictate your do's and don'ts. Let's talk about your choices and how they impact your ability to fight infection and stay well. Food. These are the required nutrients. For your body to be healthy and fight off infection, your cells must be healthy, and therefore that means getting the required vitamins and nutrients. In the past, there were only whole foods. That's what our ancestors ate. Choose real food, whole foods, unprocessed in a natural state. Watch out for the toxic food burden. Unfortunately, there's unnatural, chemical-laden GMO foods and toxicity all around. These, of course, were never around for our ancestors. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors existed before the agricultural revolution 10,000 years ago. This means no dairy and hardly any grains and legumes in their diet. We know they ate unlimited vegetables, abundant lean natural meats, and by lean that doesn't mean not eating fat around the meat. It just means the animals back then were not obese grain-fed animals like the ones most people consume today. They ate some fruits, nuts, and seeds, and limited starch and no processed sugar back then. This is what we need to eat today to boost our immune systems. Nothing has changed. Leading hunter-gatherer experts suggest that from a percentage point of view, hunter-gatherers on average, it varies a lot from around the world, but on average, hunter-gatherers consumed about 20 to 35% of protein in the form of vegetable and lean wild game, 25 to 40% carbohydrates in the forms of fruits and vegetables, and 30 to 45% fat from organic meats, fish, vegetables, and nuts. Here's a bit of a list of do's and don'ts. You can pause here and check it out, but beware of this last one here, sugar and immunity. The sugar, the glucose molecule is almost identical to our vitamin C molecule. And when we flood our system with glucose, we block the vitamin C receptor sites on our white blood cells. And the white blood cell needs that vitamin C to function properly and for the immune system to function properly. So when you have too much glucose in your system, like many people do because they eat lots of processed foods, grains, you are lowering your immunity. This is really important. Why take supplements? Even the best diet styles is insufficient in the modern world. Unfortunately, Soils and therefore foods are depleted of nutrients. Toxicity burdens are all around us, and our pace of life means that we are lacking in certain nutrients. This is what I recommend, but you shouldn't just take any. So please message me or email me for recommendations. Next on the list is movement. Here's what we know about movement. It is absolutely a required nutrient. Your cells expect and require movement as much as they do water or oxygen. It reduces stress. In fact, neurologically, it is your reset button from sympathetic fight or flight to parasympathetic rest and repair. Did you know that our ancestors walked on average 10 to 15 kilometers a day? However, when you are fighting something off or recovering from an illness, it is best to choose rest over movement. The benefits of regular exercise are massive and almost unlimited. As I said, physiologists define it as a required nutrient. Lack of movement upsets normal cell function. Movement drives normal hormonal cycles. It promotes normal healthy circulation of blood as well as lymphatic flow. And your lymphatic system is the janitorial system of the body and is crucial to optimal immune system function. Sleep, of course, is huge. People recommend 7 to 8 hours and more when you're fighting something. Don't forget to have a nap if you feel like one. Power nap goes a long way. Now, back to our needs. Thoughts. You see, we want our immune system to be strong and healthy, of course. Did you know that our brain doesn't know the difference between thoughts and reality? This is why your thought patterns have a massive influence on your body chemistry and your immunity. So how we choose to think is absolutely critical. Stressful thought patterns produce stress hormones and what we call adaptive stressful physiology. Stress hormones put you in fight or flight and downregulate or weaken your immune system. Energy is redirected away from the immune system and towards your musculoskeletal system, preparing you to fight or flight. And when you're stressed, your body prioritizes to fight or run away from a threat like a tiger, not worrying about something like a virus. The tiger is more important, and this behavior eventually catches up with you and you get very, very sick. I think it's really important at this point to briefly discuss the stress response. This is something we will be coming back to over and over again, and I have gone over in previous workshops and blogs. Because stress in the form of toxicity or deficiency is the only thing to take you away from homeostasis. Remember what we defined as health? We could spend hours talking about this subject, but for this presentation, just remember that stress will downregulate our immune system, particularly emotional stress, which is so prevalent in our society and is constantly running in the background in our modern brains. Here are some other stressors. Just remember, the only thing taking you away from homeostasis, that perfect cell balance, is stress in the form of toxicity and deficiency. To take it a step further, we can break down stress into the 3 T's: thoughts, toxins, and traumas, or chemical, physical, emotional, lifestyle factors. I see a real combination of these stressors every day with my patients, particularly around this time of year. But the result is always tension in the muscles, joints, and nerves. Now, one of the most relevant stressors to the spine are traumas. And we have 2 main categories. We have macro traumas and micro traumas. Macro traumas are your car accidents, sports injuries, slips and falls, etc. These things are obvious physical stressors and they often cause pain and overt signs of damage. These can be serious for sure, but they can also cause something that may not be so obvious. And then we have the microtraumas. These are the repetitive small injuries. Does this look familiar? How many people feel like they are spending way too much time sitting in front of a screen? How about your family, your kids? How many think that this is probably unhealthy in many ways, right? Let's talk about one very serious way this is causing a problem for you and your family. Remember our spine? It's that suit of armor. Well, every vertebra acts like a suit of armor, and it protects the delicate nerves that send messages to every part of the body. Macro and micro traumas cause damage to your spine, eventually leading to stiffness and wear and tear, which I often refer to as rust, but technically degeneration. With any loss of movement in the spine, you will affect the nerve function and the quality of messages coming and going to the brain. In particular, this blockage or stiffness, which chiropractors call subluxations, create more stress in your body and activate the release of stress hormones, further reducing your immunity. All my patients, upon questioning and assessment, have had traumas in the past, but many times they don't remember. I mean, who do you know that hasn't had some kind of slip or fall or jar or jolt throughout their life? Everybody has. And now we sit a lot on top of it. So we know that these subluxations cause nerve irritation and interference in your body's inborn, innate ability to heal and remain healthy. So how do you know if you have a subluxation? Just like you need a dentist to check your teeth for cavities, you need a chiropractor to check your spine for subluxations. That's what we specialize in. If you're an existing patient of mine, you will know that to find these subluxations, I need to do a thorough history followed by a posture, movement, and chiropractic assessment, and quite often even x-ray analysis. If you're not a patient of mine and you happen to be wondering whether or not you have any subluxations in your spine, I would be more than happy to offer a very special promotion as part of my Body Signals workshop. For you and any of your family or friends, I'm happy to offer a 50% discount off my initial assessment, which is normally valued at $120. So if you're interested, please call the clinic and be aware that availability may be limited, so be quick to take advantage of this offer. Just know that the only way to correct subluxations is to get adjusted by a chiropractor. On top of that, we can help you break those bad habits, give you a lot more information about lifestyle, and even give you some exercises to help strengthen that spine and body. Now, if you're already doing sick, here's a list to get you going while you get your lifestyle in order. Get that rest. Sleep as much as possible. Get extra adjustments or start getting adjusted if you've never been. Limit and avoid stressful situations if possible. No sugar. Drink plenty of water. Simple nutrient-dense foods. Broth and soup are great options. Vegetable-based smoothies and supplementation. Don't forget, give your body time, but take action. Now, remember we were talking about 3 reasons for our current health crisis. Number 1 was the wrong definition of health. Number 2 was people not taking responsibility. And the third one, well, procrastination. Yes, people often wait for crisis to take action. Don't be one of these people. Start making changes to your lifestyle today. And for those that haven't yet, have your spines checked. Take advantage of my excellent offer.
Thank you very much for listening. This is Dr. Lazar Jancic from Leederville Chiropractic Clinic. And just remember, next month is all about low back, so keep an eye out. for that workshop.